Why do we want this state which discriminates on the basis of ethnic origins and the religion of its citizens from day one?
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is shown on over 25 cable stations from Vermont to New York City. On the internet at thestruggle.org. Our YouTube channel, Struggle Video Media. After the grand jury in Ferguson decided to let off the policeman who put 6 bullets into unarmed Michael Brown, there were demonstrations from New York to Oakland. On November 26th, hundreds took over a street in New Haven, Connecticut. We'll have coverage. Most of the program will be talking about the Israeli government's intention to have the parliament declare that Israel is the state of Jews only. We'll have video of a talk by Ofra Yeshua Leith talking about how the Israeli Supreme Court recently decided it's impossible to have an Israeli nationality. She also details the quiet but devastatingly effective ways her government discriminates against non-Jews. This is a cartoon by Brazilian political cartoonist Carlos Latuf about the political earthquake caused by the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson. The grand jury in Ferguson wouldn't even indict policeman Darren Wilson. That's extraordinary. Grand juries notoriously do what the prosecutors want. The old saw is that a prosecutor could get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. Remember, it's not a trial. You don't have to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. All you have to do is to have some reasonable evidence to charge someone with a crime. Yet even though Brown was unarmed and some witnesses said he had his hands up, there was no indictment. In his testimony to the grand jury, Officer Wilson said Brown was acting like a demon. That should recall to you what police said in California many years ago about Rodney King, saying that they all had to beat him up because King supposedly was fighting back with superhuman energy. After getting off, Wilson was interviewed on camera by George Stephanopoulos on ABC News and said he shot Brown twice as he came towards him, and then when Brown was 8 or 10 feet away, Brown put his head down as if to tackle Wilson. Wilson then said that's when he shot him in the head. Chilling and incredible. Incredible as in not to be believed. In New Haven, some 300 people, mostly young, gathered downtown at night on the 26th and started to march. They took to the streets, marching swiftly for about an hour. Many stopped motorists, honked their horns, or waved in appreciation. Police tried to get people on the sidewalk, but eventually gave up and just escorted the march. They eventually marched down New Haven's Chapel Street against traffic. Postscript. The president made some remarks after the grand jury's decision. He told us that we need to accept that this decision was the grand jury's to make, and that we're making progress in race relations. Obama has a vast Justice Department under him, and they could go after Officer Wilson, but Obama's Justice Department has never indicted a single policeman in a police brutality outrage. Obama is useless. Now, you may have heard that the Israeli government intends to push through a bill declaring that Israel is the nation-state of the Jewish people, even though half the people in the land it controls are non-Jews. A few weeks ago, an expert on Israel's curious and racist attitudes towards nationality spoke in New Haven. Her name is Ofra Yeshua Leith. She's a former international correspondent for the Israeli paper Ma'ariv and currently an activist in the One Democratic State movement. We present sections from her talk on the program today.
Last year, the Israeli Supreme Court unanimously rejected a plea by a group of Israelis, and I was one of these Israelis. There were Jews amongst us, Arabs, Druze, etc. We wanted to be Israeli nationals. As Stanley mentioned before, there is no such thing as Israeli nationality, and we thought it was about time after 65 years of the state. The court action started actually in 98. I only joined them in 2005. You will find there people like Uri Avneri, who you might know about, sort of left-wing Zionists, as well as Professor Uzi Ornan, and I'll get back to him. He's 91 years old today. He was in his 70s when he started this work. This was our Ani Israeli Association, a terrible brand name because no Palestinians want to join us now because who wants to be called Israeli anyway? But the court action, I think, is important. And the court's decision was there is no Israeli nationality, which we expected, but we knew that for 15 years they avoided us. They did not want to say it out loud because although the practice is that there is discrimination in Israel and the Knesset makes anti-non-Jewish nationals, the Supreme Court was still is considered a bastion of Israeli liberalism, somebody who stands up for democracy, but they had no choice because this is the truth. And I would tell you that we told them, listen, every one of us carry an Israeli passport, and this is my Israeli passport, and it says nationality Israeli. This is how I travel. This is how every Israeli travel in the world, whether he's Jewish or not Jewish. Palestinians who are Israeli citizens have the same kind of passport. But, however, this passport is only our travel document. For internal purposes, we need to carry an ID, which is our identity card, and this is compulsory in Israel. Everybody carries one, and the identity card actually tells what our ethnic or religious origins are. And during this court action, we made the state reluctantly, the judge forced them to say which nationalities does the Israeli state recognizes. There are about 125 nationalities. You can be Israeli citizen and carry an ID which says you're a British national or a Persian national or unclear nationality. This is recognized, but no Israeli nationality. And the thing is, and the reason and the rationale behind it is that Jewish nationality is something special, because this is supposed to be the Jewish state, and Jews get a different treatment, and I'll go to that. This is my ID. Israelis will tell you that today, I marked it in red, the nationality is not marked. You see asterisks. Since 2002, and some of you know about the situation with the different Jewish denominations, Reform, Orthodox, or Conservative, and because the Reform and Conservatives are not recognized in Israel, and the Orthodox is the only Judaism recognized in our state. Will I have some water here? Sorry, I didn't bring any with me. Then instead of, I had it, my old ID said here Jewish, now there are asterisks, nothing else. However, if you're an official of the state or a policeman, you can easily know that I'm Jewish just by looking at this, and it doesn't say so. It says, I don't know if you have any Hebrew readers, it says my name, the name of my father Moshe, the name of my mother, and my date of birth, which is in somewhere in 90, yes, in the kind of dates that you're used to, and also in Hebrew, Kaf B'Tevet, that means the Hebrew calendar. So of course, only because I'm Jewish, only Jewish people have the Jewish calendar marked on their IDs, but that's not all. I only have my mother and my father. If you're an Arab, if you're a non-Jew, you also have a grandfather. Guess what? You have a special place where the name of your grandfather is marked, and this helps because you might have a name which is sound Israelite, like Yosef or Yusuf or Amir, but the third generation will find your Abdallah or Muhammad and will know that you're not one of us. And that's the whole point, and this is actually the whole thing we have to deal with. Another thing I have to tell you, most of my talk is not about the occupation. I'm not talking about the occupation, I'm not talking about what happened after 67. We are talking about the good old Israel that the two-staters want to go back to. And this is the state we have. And when people say, we want 2 states, I say, well, we could have 8 states. But why do we want this state which discriminates on the basis of ethnic origins and the religion of its citizens from day one? So this I already explained, nationality is written, and the discrimination always been recognized by the state, and now the legislators joined the executive branch and the legislative branch. And are we allowed to call it apartheid? How many times did you hear Israelis say there is no apartheid in Israel? Because there are no special buses. Surprise, this month, buses are coming back. You can go to Mondovais and read my articles about bus 286 when Arabs are not allowed to go on, and then they change, and then they change. And my friends, these very, very days are starting a new action because there is another. The petty apartheid is back. There is a little bit of petty apartheid in Israel. It's true that unlike South Africa, we don't have bathrooms for Jews and for Arabs. But the discrimination is there, and apartheid is just a generic name. It's like when I was a child, every refrigerator was called a frigidaire, even if it was General Electric. So it's discrimination, it's apartheid, it's just a question of a name. Also important to say that on most, the laws that the Knesset is passing, the laws that we are subjected to, normally don't say there are special rights for Jews. Oh no. What we have, we simply have 2 kinds of citizenship. One citizenship is citizenship by the right of return, like I was born in Israel, but I'm a citizen by right of return. And if you're not eligible to the law of return, you are a citizen by right of residency. And there is a very big difference. And somewhere you will find that the law of return refers to Jews. So the state and the Knesset can continue to legislate, and institutions just speak about law of return or residency, and that's all. They don't talk about the religion, but it's there in the back. So as I said, it's a euphemism for Jewish origins. And this is the privileges that you get if you are eligible for the right of return. You have a right to come to the country, to enter any time into the country. You have the right to reside. You can leave the country for a long time. You can come back because you're eligible to the right of return. I've been away for 10 years. I came back. I had a child abroad, and the husband wasn't even Jewish, but never mind. We came back. We were all eligible by the right of return. Family reunion. Any Israeli Jew can bring their families with them. Any Jew living abroad coming with the right of return can bring their children, their grandchildren, their grandmothers. You know, it goes 3 generations removed. You're still eligible for the right of return. Happy families. And access to your own property is obvious. If you're eligible for the right of return, you can buy 93% of the land of Israel is designated to the Jewish National Fund. It's Jewish National Fund. So if you're a citizen by right of return, you're eligible to all these rights. But when you give privileges to one sector of the population, that means that the people who do not have are not citizens by right of return, citizenships based on residency, they do not have this all these rights. So they do not have rights to their property, even though, and I'll go back to this absent property situation. They cannot buy land which is owned by the Jewish National Fund. They cannot unite families. They cannot bring, and if they leave the country for a certain number of years and their passport is no longer valid, it's a big problem to renew it. You have to go through commissions, you have to prove, you have to do this, and sometimes you are asked to do all kind of favors to the state so that it will reinstate you as an Israeli citizen. Okay. Altogether, I only mentioned 3 realms that have 3 areas, but the Adala organization and the lawyers found that there are 55 Israeli laws, little laws, big laws, that are discriminative against anybody who is not Jewish. And when you say in Israel that you support a state for all its citizens, I mean, it's not rocket science, it's a very simple thing. Every state should be the state for all its citizens. But this word alone is pejorative in Israeli media. To say that somebody is, you just say, oh, it's all these human rights activists. Oh, human rights activists. It would be like saying, I don't know what the equivalent would be in this country. It was just calling somebody a name. You're one of these people. You are the miserable New Jewish Israel Fund, a Zionist leftist organization, gets so much flack. People tell me, because they don't understand anything in politics, they say, oh, you're like the New Israel Fund. And I say, no. I mean, I think they're right-wingers, they're Zionists. But still, the kind of animosity, the kind of hatred which is even allowed in public speech. A teacher that lost his job because he was talking about human rights, and one 16-year-old student started screaming at him, and he told her she doesn't know what she's talking about. He lost his job, not she was reprimanded. And the Minister of Education, which is supposed to be in a sort of a secular, enlightened center party, didn't do anything about it. So my claim is that the state of mind that the Israelis are in is simply engineered to them through mechanisms which have been perfected in 1500 or 2000 or 3000 years of Jewish orthodoxy. And I would just say, all religions are not suitable to run states. Well, we're here. There is an extra court case that I wanted to present to you. We did not win the right to call ourselves Israeli nationals, but the chairman of our association, Uzi Ornan, a professor of 91 years old, decided that he wants to change his status from a citizen by virtue of right of return to a citizen by virtue of residency. He was born in 1923 in Palestine, Israel. So why cannot he be a citizen by a right of residency? And we thought it would take another 15 years for the court to try and skirmish around this issue. Didn't take them even a month. They just decided, Mr. Ornan, you cannot change it. It was rejected. You are a citizen by right of return, even though you're 91 and you were a Palestinian in your ID, which he presented is a Palestinian British mandatory ID. And that was exactly a year ago, right? So what does it mean? It means that to be Jewish is not something which is given to you by free will. You cannot become Jewish by free will. Nobody can come to Israel. I have this example which I flipped over quickly. When you come to get your ID, you are asked what your nationality is. If you say you're Jewish, you have to produce papers and community registration that shows that your parents have been practicing or recognized as Jews. If you say anything else, you can say anything else. I was married to an Englishman who didn't want to say what his religion was, so he didn't want to say I'm a Christian, because to say I'm a Christian is something means something ideologically, because they wouldn't give him anything. So he said, okay, write down a Buddhist, and he's registered as a Buddhist. You can do that, but you cannot register as Jewish. But you can also, if you're Jewish, you suddenly cannot become a non-Jew. So there is no free will here. And I stress the point because democracy is about free will. It's about people choosing their identity. People talking about, there is a Jewish identity. Yes, but the Jewish identity is not something that we can make up for ourselves. So what does that mean for the self-determination of Jews? And self-determination is a very loaded word because states say that they have a right to exist by virtue of self-determination. But if your citizens do not have the right of self-determination, if we can not determine ourselves, what does it mean that that your determination is by some rabbinical authority which is authorized by the state, financed by the state, and they are the ones who consider what kind of nationality you have, what privileges you are. So I think Israel, when it argues for self-determination and all this two-state talk, should be rethought along the lines of what does it mean to be a Jew in Israel? What does it mean to be a Jewish state if this is really a religious and it's not even a religion that you can take. I can become. It's a very special case, the Jewish religion. I can become a Muslim tomorrow by saying, no, Allah without Allah and Muhammad Rasul Allah. But I cannot, and I can become a Christian if I'll get baptized. But you cannot become Jewish unless you go through a terrible ordeal of learning, etc. It is a very controversial. Even today, I was told by my aunt and uncle who are really almost Orthodox, but they were horrified to see on Israeli television this week a rabbi telling a secular interviewee he was being nasty or discriminated against a woman, a very religious converted woman, and he admitted that he prefers a secular-born Jew to a convert, even though the convert is very, very religious and observing. So he just said it on Israeli television. It's not me. Okay. Okay. Next to the right of self-determination, the Jewish Israeli says we also have a right to Jewish collective rights. So please consider what kind of collective we have. It is a collective that is not a voluntary collective. You cannot belong to it by free will, as I said. You cannot belong through marriage. You cannot be, not even by birth and education. There are people who've been born like workers or non-Jews who were born in this country. No, they can never be accepted into the sort of recognized nationality, the canonized nationality of the state by birth or by education, and they can go to the Israeli army and they'd still be considered goys. So I think it's, I don't have to waste a lot of time talking about what it means to be Jewish and democratic, which doesn't mean you cannot be a Jew and a democratic person, or a Muslim and democratic, but I don't think a political entity which has an army can adhere to a specific God. And you know that in the last Gaza war, one of the generals of the army issued the order of the day, which was really a religious tract. People argued against it, and lots of criticism, and Haaretz, which is read by 5% of the educated population, was very much against it, but he's a general and he will be promoted, and one day he will be chief of staff and maybe he'll be prime minister. And my main argument is with people who put a lot of pressure on territories. Let us withdraw from the territories, the occupied territories. But it is all the territory which is handled that way, okay? I lived in Ramat Aviv, in Tel Aviv. It was once an Arab village, so it's also, we're also settlers there. The question is the principle. The question, Israel. The problem with Israel is not territory. The state is already one state anyway. The question is people. The question is how do you deal with the people who live in this country? And this is something that people don't like to hear. This is where I cannot have this talk without talking about something about the status of the Palestinians in the occupied territories. So we already established that the principle is clear, The non-Jews are considered a demographic hazard, so they get more and more restrictions and limitations. Securing the Jewish state is the highest priority of the state, and we do it through these IDs. Besides these major distinctions between Jews and non-Jews, the state is constantly working on, because it's also practical. So Druze, Christians, Bedouins get special positions if they cooperate with the army, if they would like to serve or to be more friendly to the Zionist establishments. The last thing is just a month ago they decided there is a new nationality, Assyria. Assyria is something from Syria, it's an obscure religion, just to give this group, which probably came from Lebanon and was maybe in the South Lebanese army, and we want to give them some more subsidies, so we give them special studies. So you see how the bureaucracy is already building. Once you have an establishment that you are allowed to see people as not equal, then you can go on forever, and you do. And then you go to and then you occupy. You occupy new territories of people who are not even Israeli citizens. Until now, we just spoke about Israeli citizens. So what happens when you're not Israeli citizen, but you're still an Israeli subject? You are stateless, but your sovereign is the Israeli state. So you get degrees. You hold an ID, like my ID, and every Palestinian has an ID issued by the Israeli Ministry of the Interior. And if you're a resident of East Jerusalem, you can vote for the city council, you can drive all over the country, because Jerusalem was annexed, so was the Golan, so it brings with itself some privileges, right? So lots of people who cannot afford to live in East Jerusalem, they work or study in Ramallah, they have to keep their residency in East Jerusalem, or they will lose lots of privileges. And then comes Area C, Area B, Area A. And we all know that Area C is where the settlers are allowed to live. Area B is supposed to be mixed. Area A is Palestinian, right? This is the Palestinian autonomy. Guess what? I found it really on the ground. I went to buy a Palestinian phone, a Jawal, that works better. Said, ID, please. I said, what do you mean ID? My ID is an Israeli ID. Yes, that's it. Apparently, all their IDs are the same, and they all report about everybody who buys a phone to the Israeli authorities. And the same, you might not know about it, I was surprised too, I researched it, Gaza Strip population. Didn't we leave the Gaza Strip? How many times did you hear Israelis say, we withdrew? There was separation, we left Gaza. We left Gaza, we didn't leave the Gaza residents. They still carry the Hawiyah, the Israeli Hawiyah. I know people are there any Palestinians here in the room? I don't know. I have Palestinian friends. They live in Germany for years. They want to come and visit their family. They have to show their Hawiyah. The wife has got to get another Hawiyah. That is an ID printed in Hebrew and Arabic for the benefit of the Israeli state. So during the last, this is the Hawiyah, the last Gaza war, didn't you hear how benevolent the Israeli army was, sending SMS messages for people whose houses is about to be bombed? What does it mean? It's their own subject. What is it? What difference does it make with you talk about the Syrian government bombing your own subject? It is not another land fighting you. It's your own citizen rising up for their rights, and you're bombing them like they were enemy, but at the same time you keep their identity in your own registration because they're your people. And you're responsible for them because you're occupying their land.
If the proposed law passes the Israeli Knesset, wouldn't it then be proper to call the apartheid regime there Jewish state? Something in the mold of the Iraq-Syria Islamic State. To close, a clip from next week's show, which centers on Egypt and the massacre last year when Obama's allies gunned down 800 people in a single day.
Before the Rafah massacre itself, Human Rights Watch interviewed somebody who attended a meeting with the Interior Ministry on August 5th, And that individual told Human Rights Watch that the Interior Ministry was throwing around in the meeting a number of 3,500 as a number they expected to kill when they dispersed the Roma Syrian.
That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller, and this is The Struggle.